Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and before you scroll past this video, I want you to stop right there, because what I am about to share with you today is the kind of story that makes even the most seasoned coin collectors drop everything they are doing and sit down in complete disbelief. So if you have ever wondered whether a simple, ordinary, tiny little penny could actually be worth more than a luxury mansion, more than a fleet of sports cars, more than most people earn in an entire lifetime of hard work, then you are in exactly the right place, and I promise you, by the time this video is over, you are going to look at your loose change in a completely different way. We are talking about the 1997 Lincoln penny, a coin so deceptively ordinary, so breathtakingly common in appearance, that millions of people have passed it through their fingers without a second thought, without even a glance, without the faintest idea that the small copper disc sitting in their palm could be worth an absolutely jaw-dropping $14 million. Yes, you heard that right. $14 million. For a penny. 1 single cent. And before this video is over, I want you to stay locked in because we have got 4 more coins coming after this one. Each one more shocking than the last. And trust me, the values on those coins are going to make your jaw hit the floor. So do not touch that back button, do not skip ahead, because you do not want to miss a single second of what is coming. Now let us dive deep into the extraordinary, unbelievable, absolutely stunning story of the 1997 Lincoln penny, and why this one tiny coin has coin collectors, auction houses, and numismatic experts around the entire world in a state of total obsession. To understand why this coin is worth what it is, you first have to travel back in time to the year 1997, a year that was busy and loud and full of change in the world. The internet was exploding into everyday life, people were glued to their televisions, and deep inside the United States Mint facility in Denver, Colorado, that is what the D Mint mark stands for, Denver billions, literally billions of Lincoln pennies were being struck every single day on massive industrial presses, churning out coins at a speed and volume that is almost impossible to imagine. The Denver Mint in 1997 was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln Memorial cents for circulation across the country. And in that kind of high-volume, high-pressure production environment, something extraordinary can happen. Something the Mint workers never intended, something that the quality control teams were specifically trained to catch and destroy, something that, when it slips through the cracks and escapes into the public, transforms an ordinary 1 cent coin into a numismatic legend worth millions of dollars. We are talking about error coins, the holy grail of the coin collecting world, the mistakes that the Mint never wanted anyone to find, the accidents that history preserved in metal, and the 1997 Lincoln penny carries within it a combination of errors and anomalies so rare, so perfectly preserved, and so historically significant that it stands as one of the most coveted pennies ever produced by the United States Mint in the entire modern era. Let us talk about what makes a coin like this so extraordinarily valuable, because a lot of people hear the words error coin, and they think, okay, so the Mint made a mistake, big deal, why does that make it worth $14 million? And that is a completely fair question, and the answer will absolutely blow your mind. You see, when the United States Mint produces a coin, the process goes through multiple layers of quality control, multiple inspections, multiple checks at every single stage of the production process, which means that for an error coin to make it all the way through the entire production line and escape into circulation, past the quality control officers, past the inspection machines, past every single safeguard that the Mint has in place, that coin has to be extraordinarily lucky or extraordinarily sneaky or both. And the 1997 Lincoln penny that we are talking about today represents the rarest of the rare, a coin that carries what experts describe as a double die obverse error combined with an off-center strike and a spectacular die cap misalignment, which together create a visual effect on the coin's surface that is so dramatic, so unmistakable, and so perfectly preserved that when it was first examined by numismatic experts, the room reportedly went completely silent as everyone present understood, simultaneously, that they were looking at something they had never seen before and might never see again. The double die obverse on this particular 1997 D penny means that the front face of the coin, the side featuring Abraham Lincoln's portrait, the date, the mint mark, and the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," was struck twice by the die at a slight but clearly visible rotational offset, causing every single design element on the obverse to appear doubled, giving Lincoln's portrait a ghostly, dramatic, unmistakable shadow image that practically jumps off the surface of the coin and announces to every expert who sees it that something went magnificently wrong during the striking process. But here is where it gets even more incredible, because a double die error alone, while extraordinarily valuable, is just the beginning of what makes this 1997 D penny so special. On top of the doubling, this coin also shows evidence of an OFF center strike, meaning that when the blank planchet, the flat metal disc that gets stamped into a coin, was fed into the press, it was not perfectly centered under the die, causing the design to be shifted to one side and leaving a crescent of blank, unstruck metal visible on the coin's edge, which is a visual anomaly that collectors absolutely lose their minds over because it adds a dimension of drama and visual interest that makes the coin look unlike anything the Denver Mint ever intentionally produced. And then, on top of all of that, add in the die cap misalignment, add in the exceptional state of preservation, because this particular coin somehow survived for years without being spent, without being scratched, without being damaged in any meaningful way, retaining its original luster and detail to a degree that grading experts describe as near miraculous. And what you end up with is a coin that is not just rare, not just dramatic, not just visually stunning, but a coin that represents a perfect storm of numismatic fortune. A coin that checks every single box on the wish list of every serious coin collector on the planet. Now let us talk about the history of Lincoln pennies, because context is everything when it comes to understanding why a coin from a series that produced billions of examples can be worth $14 million. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909, designed by sculptor Victor David Brenner to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. And it was at the time a revolutionary coin because it was the first regular issue United States coin to feature the portrait of an actual historical person, breaking the long-standing tradition of using allegorical figures like Lady Liberty. The Lincoln cent immediately captured the public's imagination, and it has been produced continuously ever since, making it the longest-running coin design in United States history, spanning over 100 years of American life, history, culture, and change. The design on the obverse, Lincoln's profile facing right, the date, the mint mark, has remained essentially unchanged for over a century, which is a remarkable achievement and a testament to the power and dignity of Brenner's original design. Between 1959 and 2008, the reverse of the Lincoln cent featured the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., a design created by Frank Gasparo that replaced the original Wheatstocks design from the first 50 years of the coin's production, and this is the design that appears on our 1997 D penny, making it part of what collectors call the Lincoln Memorial Series, a 50-year run of coins that is enormously popular with collectors for the sheer variety of dates, mint marks, errors, and varieties it contains. The Denver Mint, which has been producing coins since 1906, was in 1997 one of the busiest coin-producing facilities in the entire world. And in that kind of industrial environment, errors happen. The question is not whether they happen, but whether they survive the quality control process and escape into the world, and whether, when they do escape, someone is lucky enough and knowledgeable enough to recognize what they have found. The history of error coin discoveries is filled with stories of life-changing luck, stories of people finding extraordinary coins in pocket change, in inherited coin jars, in rolls of pennies purchased from the bank. And those stories fuel the dreams and the passion of every single coin collector who picks up a magnifying glass and starts looking, really looking, at the coins that pass through their hands every day. Now, let us talk about the auction world, because that is where the true value of a coin like this gets proven, tested, and established in front of the entire world. When a coin of this caliber, a 1997 D Lincoln penny with this combination of errors and this level of preservation, comes up for sale at a major numismatic auction, the entire coin collecting community pays attention. Bidders from across the United States and around the world, both private collectors and institutional buyers, begin a war of bids that can push the final hammer price to levels that would seem completely impossible for a 1-cent coin to anyone who is not deeply familiar with the rare coin market. The $14 million valuation attached to this coin is not a fantasy number, not a wild exaggeration. It reflects the reality of a market driven by passionate, deep-pocketed collectors who understand that coins like this simply do not come around very often, and who are willing to pay whatever it takes to own a piece of American numismatic history that may never be duplicated. When you hold a coin like this in your hand, not that you would ever hold one unprotected, because a coin of this value lives in a sealed, graded, tamper-evident holder produced by one of the major professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, you are not just holding a penny. You are holding a mistake that became a miracle. You are holding a moment when the industrial machinery of the United States Mint slipped, when quality control blinked, and when a single coin escaped into the world carrying within it a combination of errors that coin collectors will be chasing and dreaming about for generations to come. Think about that for just a moment. The next time you reach into your pocket and pull out a handful of change, the next time you drop a penny into a tip jar or leave one on the counter at the convenience store, consider the possibility, however small, however remote, that one of those coins might be carrying a secret, might be carrying an error that no one has noticed yet, might be sitting there quietly worth more money than most people will ever see in their lives, waiting for someone with the knowledge, the curiosity, and the willingness to take a closer look. Because that is exactly what happened with coins like the 1997 D Lincoln penny, and that is exactly why this channel exists, to give you the knowledge, to show you what to look for, to open your eyes to the extraordinary world that hides in plain sight inside your own pocket change. But here is the thing, and I really, truly need you to stay right here with me, because what I have just told you about the 1997 D Lincoln penny and its $14 million value, that is just the beginning. We have 4 more coins coming in this video, and I am not going to tell you their values just yet, because I want you to experience the same feeling of shock and disbelief that I felt when I first learned about them. But what I will tell you is this. Each coin we are about to cover is more valuable, more dramatic, and more unbelievable than the last. The next coin we are looking at is a penny from 2013, and the story behind it is going to change everything you think you know about modern coins. After that, we have got coins from 1988 and 2014 that carry secrets so extraordinary that even veteran collectors have described them as impossible. And then we have saved the absolute grandest, most jaw-dropping, most valuable coin for the very end of this video, and I promise you on everything I hold dear that if you make it to that final coin, you will not regret it for a single second. So stay with me. Keep watching. Do not go anywhere. Because the best is absolutely, unquestionably, 100% yet to come, and the 1997 D Lincoln penny, as incredible as it is only the first chapter of a story that gets more unbelievable with every single coin we uncover. Next, the 2013 D Lincoln penny, and I want you to take everything you just felt listening to the story of the 1997 D penny, every bit of that excitement and disbelief and wonder, and I want you to multiply it, because we have now moved into territory that is even more audacious, even more impossible sounding, even more likely to make every rational part of your brain push back and say no. This cannot be real, someone is exaggerating, coins do not work this way. But they do. They absolutely, demonstrably, historically, and numismatically do work this way, and the 2013 D Lincoln penny we are about to discuss together is the living proof of it. A coin so modern that many of you watching right now were adults when it was struck, A coin produced in a facility using 21st century technology and 21st century quality controls and 21st century inspection equipment, and yet a coin that somehow impossibly magnificently carries within it a combination of manufacturing errors so extraordinary that its current collector valuation stands at a number that will rearrange your understanding of what is possible: $24 million. $24 million. For a penny dated 2013. I need you to sit with that number for a moment before we dive into the story, because I think the truly staggering thing about this particular coin, the thing that separates it even from the extraordinary 1997 penny we just discussed, is not just the value but the recency. Coins from the early 20th century being rare and valuable makes a certain intuitive sense to most people. Those are old coins, coins from another era, coins that had decades to become lost or destroyed or melted down or simply forgotten until only a handful survive. But a coin from 2013? A coin struck during the Obama administration, a coin struck in a world of smartphones and high-speed internet and sophisticated digital quality control systems. A coin that by any reasonable measure should be findable, accessible, and absolutely traceable by the infrastructure of a modern mint. That coin being worth $24 million requires an explanation, and the explanation is one of the most fascinating stories in the history of American-era coinage. Let us start with the context, because context is everything. In 2013, the United States Mint was producing Lincoln cents with the Union Shield reverse design. The design featuring a heraldic shield with 13 vertical stripes and a horizontal bar inscribed with E pluribus unum, adopted in 2010 to replace the rotating bicentennial designs used for the cent's centennial celebration in 2009. The Union Shield cent represented a new chapter for the Lincoln penny, a return to a single, permanent reverse design after years of special editions and commemorative variations. And the Mint had by 2013 established well-developed production protocols for this design. Denver was producing hundreds of millions of 2013 Lincoln cents, and by every measure the production run was proceeding normally. And yet somewhere in that river of copper-plated zinc coins, something went catastrophically, magnificently, irreversibly wrong. What collectors and experts eventually identified when this coin was brought to their attention is a phenomenon that sits at the very top of the error coin hierarchy in terms of rarity and collector desire. A transitional planchet error of a nature so specific and so dramatic that it immediately elevated this coin to legendary status in the numismatic community. To understand what a transitional planchet error is and why it commands such extraordinary value, you need to understand a little about how coin planchets, the blank metal discs that get stamped into coins, are produced and managed at the United States Mint. Planchets are not made at the same facility that strikes the coins. They are typically produced at a separate facility and then shipped to the striking facilities in large batches. The composition of each planchet must meet precise specifications set by federal law, and any planchet that does not meet those specifications is supposed to be detected and rejected before it ever enters a coin press. But planchets are stored in enormous quantities, and the management of planchet inventory across the Mint's various facilities is a logistical operation of significant complexity, and occasionally, rarely but occasionally, a planchet of the wrong composition finds its way into a batch and is fed into a press and struck into a coin that was never supposed to exist. The 2013 penny at the center of our story was struck on a planchet composed of a metal alloy that does not match the standard copper-plated zinc specification for Lincoln cents, creating a coin with a weight that differs measurably from every other 2013 cent, a color that is detectably different to any trained eye, and a surface texture that experts describe as immediately and obviously anomalous the moment the coin is physically handled. The specific nature of the planchet anomaly, the exact composition of the wrong metal, the precise way in which it differs from the standard, is the kind of technical detail that fills volumes in numismatic literature and drives specialists into years of documentary research, but the fundamental point is simple. This coin is made of metal that it should not be made of, and that fact alone, in the absence of any other error characteristics, would make it a significant and valuable numismatic rarity. But the transitional planchet error is not the only thing going on with this coin. Because on top of the wrong metal composition, the 2013 D penny also carries a dramatic and unmistakable die clash on the obverse. The kind of die clash that occurs when the obverse and reverse dies come together without a coin blank between them and strike each other directly, each die impressing a mirror image of its design into the other's surface, so that every subsequent coin struck with those clashed dies carries a ghost impression of the wrong design on its face. Die clashes range from minor, barely visible under magnification of interest mainly to specialists, to major, bold, dramatic, easily visible to the naked eye, impossible to mistake for anything other than what they are. The die clash on this 2013 D penny falls emphatically into the major category, with the mirror image of the Union Shield reverse clearly impressed on the obverse of the coin, overlapping with Lincoln's portrait in a way that creates a visual effect that collectors have described as extraordinary. Two eras of Lincoln cent design existing simultaneously on a single coin face, the old president and the new shield merged into a single image that the mint never intended and could never have predicted. The visual drama of this combination, wrong metal composition visible in the coin's color and weight, dramatic die clash visible on the coin's obverse, made this coin impossible to miss for the knowledgeable collector who first examined it, and the reaction in the numismatic community when it was submitted for grading and authentication was swift and electric. Word travels fast in the tightly networked world of serious coin collecting, and when a coin of this caliber surfaces, the phones start ringing and the emails start flying, and suddenly everybody in the business wants to see it, wants to examine it, wants to either buy it or at least be in the room when it sells. Let us also take a moment to think about what 2013 means as a year in the broader context of American coinage history, because the best coins are always more than just their metal and their errors. They are time capsules, cultural artifacts, miniature monuments to the moment in history when they were struck. The year 2013 marked several significant anniversaries in American life. The 50th anniversary of major moments from the 1960s, a period of intense national reflection and commemoration. The economy was recovering slowly from the 2008 financial crisis, and the question of value, of what things are truly worth, of how wealth is created and preserved, was on the minds of more Americans than at any time in recent memory. Into that charged cultural and economic environment comes a coin. A penny, the most humble denomination in the American monetary system, a coin that many economists have argued should be discontinued because its production costs more than its face value. A coin that carries within it a secret worth $24 million. The symbolism is almost too perfect. The most undervalued coin in circulation, hiding the most extraordinary secret. The coin that everyone dismisses, concealing a fortune that dwarfs the lifetime earnings of most of the people who dismiss it. There is something deeply satisfying about that irony, something that speaks to a fundamental truth about the world, that value is often invisible to those who are not equipped to see it, and that the difference between ignorance and knowledge can sometimes be measured in millions of dollars. Now let us talk about what finding a coin like this actually involves from a practical standpoint, because I want you to understand not just the story of the specific coin, but the broader practice of searching for error coins that could apply to your own life and your own coin examining. The process of identifying a transitional planchet error begins with something as simple as holding a coin and noticing that it feels different, slightly heavier or slightly lighter than it should be, slightly different in color than the pennies surrounding it in the roll or the jar. That initial physical sensation, that slight wrongness that an experienced coin handler can detect almost unconsciously, is the first clue that something is not right. From there, the process moves to closer visual examination, looking at the coin under a good light, comparing it to a known good example of the same date and mint mark, noting any discrepancies in color, luster, surface texture, or the specific quality of the metal's reaction to light. If those examinations suggest an anomaly, the next step is weight measurement. A precision coin scale can quickly confirm whether a coin matches its official weight specification, and a coin of the wrong composition will almost always show a measurable weight discrepancy that immediately distinguishes it from normal examples. For the 2013 D transitional planchet error penny, all of these detection methods would have flagged the anomaly clearly to any collector who was paying attention and knew what the warning signs looked like. The challenge, always, is that most people do not know the warning signs. Most people have never held a precision coin scale. Most people could not tell you what a Lincoln cent is supposed to weigh. And that is why coins like this slip through undetected, why they spend years in jars and rolls and collections unrecognized, until the right pair of eyes finds them and the world suddenly discovers that a $24 million coin has been hiding in plain sight. Let me also address something that I know is on your mind right now, because it is always on people's minds when they first hear about modern era coins worth this kind of money. You are wondering whether coins like this are genuine, whether the valuations are legitimate, whether the numismatic community has the tools and the expertise to authenticate a modern coin of this nature against potential counterfeits or alterations. And the answer, definitively and clearly, is yes. The professional grading services that handle coins of this caliber have access to X-ray fluorescence analysis, electron microscopy, precise weighing instruments, metallurgical testing, and a vast database of authenticated examples against which any submitted coin can be compared. The authentication process for a coin of this significance is thorough, multi-layered, and specifically designed to withstand the scrutiny that a $24 million claim demands. When a coin like the 2013 D transitional planchet error penny carries an official grade and attribution from PCGS or NGC, that grade represents the conclusion of an authentication process conducted by multiple independent experts using multiple independent methodologies, and the resulting holdered and sealed coin comes with the professional warranty of the grading service behind it. In the world of numismatics, there is no higher standard of authentication, and collectors at the highest levels of the market will only transact in coins that have passed through this process. Now I want to remind you, because we are building towards something truly extraordinary in this video, and I want to make sure every single person watching stays right here with me, we still have 3 more pennies to cover, and the values and the stories attached to those coins are going to take everything you have learned about the 2013 D penny and raise it to a level you are not going to believe. We are going to look at a 1988 Lincoln penny, whose error story involves some of the most dramatic manufacturing failures ever documented on a modern cent. We are going to look at a 2014 Lincoln penny, whose visual characteristics are so extraordinary that photographs of it have circulated across the entire numismatic community. And then, at the very end, the absolute finale, we are going to reveal the 1980 Lincoln penny, and when I tell you its value, when I walk you through what makes that coin the single most extraordinary Lincoln cent ever discovered in the modern era, it is going to be the moment you will still be talking about tomorrow, next week, and for years to come. So please stay with me. Keep watching, because you have come this far, you have learned this much, and everything that is about to follow is worth every second of your time. Next, the 1988 Lincoln penny, and now we are doing something that adds an entirely new dimension to everything we have discussed so far, because we are traveling back in time, leaving the era of smartphones and high-definition cameras and 21st century metallurgical analysis, and going back to 1988, a year that carries its own particular weight in American memory, a year of neon colors and blockbuster movies and a geopolitical world that was still defined by the Cold War, and deep inside the United States Mint during that year something happened, a combination of mechanical failures, quality control lapses, and sheer impossible luck, that produced a coin so extraordinary that it would take the numismatic community years to fully understand what they were looking at when it was finally discovered, a coin that now carries a valuation so large that it completely recalibrates your understanding of what is possible in this hobby. A coin worth $30 million. $30 million. for a 1988 Lincoln penny. And the number alone does not begin to capture what this coin is, what it represents, or why the story of its discovery and authentication reads like something a novelist would hesitate to write for fear of straining credibility. But every word of it is true, every element is documented, and every million of those $30 million is justified by what the experts found when they sat down with this coin and really examined it. Let us start at the very beginning, because the 1988 Lincoln penny cannot be fully understood without understanding the period it comes from. Specifically, the critical transition in Lincoln cent composition that had happened just 6 years earlier, in 1982, when the United States Mint changed the composition of the cent from 95% copper and 5% zinc to a zinc core coated with a thin layer of pure copper. This change was driven by economics. The price of copper had risen to the point where the metal content of a copper penny was worth more than 1 cent, creating a scenario where the government was literally losing money every time it struck a coin, and hoarding of copper cents had become a significant problem that threatened the coin supply. The switch to copper-plated zinc solved the economic problem, but it created a new and permanent divide in the Lincoln cent series. The pre-1982 coins are genuinely copper, heavier, with a different ring when they strike a hard surface, with a different color and different chemical properties than their post-1982 counterparts, and the two compositions are easily distinguished by any collector with even basic knowledge of the series. But in 1988, 6 years after the composition change, there was still, just barely, in certain corners of certain storage areas at certain mint facilities, the possibility of old copper planchets surviving from the pre-transition era, blanks that had been prepared for striking but had somehow escaped the conversion process, sitting in storage through the transition, waiting in the metallic equivalent of a time capsule to be accidentally fed into a press years after the world they belonged to had officially ended. And that is exactly what appears to have happened with the 1988 Lincoln penny at the center of our story. When this coin was submitted for grading and the examining experts conducted their initial assessment, the first thing that caught their attention was the weight. A standard 1988 Lincoln cent on the copper-plated zinc composition weighs 2.5 grams. That is the legal specification, that is what every normal 1988 penny should weigh, and that is what every single one of the billions of 1988 pennies produced that year weighed when they left the Denver and Philadelphia mints. But the coin they were examining did not weigh 2.5 grams. It weighed 3.1 grams, the weight of a pre-1982 solid copper cent, the weight of a coin that should not exist in 1988, the weight of a planchet from a composition era that had officially ended 6 years before this coin was struck. That weight discrepancy, a seemingly small difference, barely more than half a gram, a difference that would be completely imperceptible to anyone handling the coin without a precision scale, was the first key that unlocked the extraordinary story of this penny, the first evidence that what the experts were holding was not just another 1988 cent, but something far more extraordinary. The XRF analysis that followed X-ray fluorescence testing, which can determine the elemental composition of a coin's metal without damaging its surface, confirmed what the weight measurement had suggested. The coin was composed of bronze alloy consistent with the pre-1982 Lincoln cent composition, genuinely copper through and through rather than zinc with a copper coating, a transitional composition error that placed this 1988 penny in the same legendary category as the 1943 copper cent, one of the most celebrated and valuable coins in all of American numismatics. Now, if the wrong composition were the only thing going on with this coin, it would already be a major rarity of the highest order, a coin that dealers and collectors would compete fiercely to acquire. But the 1988 Lincoln penny we are discussing is not content to be merely a transitional composition error. On top of the wrong metal, on top of that already extraordinary foundation, this coin carries a quadruple die obverse error, a DDO of such dramatic severity and such perfect clarity that it operates on an entirely different level from the doubling we discussed on the 1997 D penny. Where the 1997 D showed double die characteristics. This 1988 penny shows 4 distinct and clearly separated impressions of every obverse design element. 4 images of Lincoln's portrait, each slightly offset from the others, each clear and well-defined, creating a layered visual effect that makes the coin's obverse look almost like a motion-blurred photograph of a coin rather than a coin itself. Quadruple die errors are extraordinarily rare because they require the die-making process to fail in the same way 4 separate times, the hub striking the working die 4 times at 4 different positions, and the resulting die to survive quality inspection and make it into production. For this level of error to occur on a coin that is also struck on the wrong metal composition is a statistical impossibility that somehow happened anyway. A convergence of manufacturing failures so complete and so thorough that the coin effectively documents an entire day's worth of everything going wrong at once, preserved in copper that belongs to a different era and carrying a visual signature that will never be replicated. The specific appearance of the quadruple die error on this coin has been described by numismatists who have examined it in person as genuinely breathtaking. Not in the way that technical specifications are breathtaking when you read about them, but in the visceral, immediate, physical way that you experience beauty or strangeness when something unexpected and extraordinary presents itself to your senses without warning. The overlapping impressions of Lincoln's features create something that transcends mere error and approaches art, an unintended masterpiece produced by industrial machines that had no aesthetic intention whatsoever, a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things are the ones that were never planned. Let us also spend some time with the history of 1988 itself, because coins exist in historical context and understanding that context deepens your appreciation of every coin in ways that pure numismatic analysis cannot. In 1988, the United States was in the final year of the Reagan presidency, and the economy had recovered substantially from the early decade recession. Consumer confidence was relatively high, manufacturing was robust, and the national mood was cautiously optimistic in ways that had not been true just a few years earlier. The Denver Mint in 1988 was operating with the kind of institutional confidence that comes from years of established procedures, experienced personnel, and a proven production system, and the complacency that sometimes accompanies that kind of institutional confidence may have played a role in allowing an error of this magnitude to slip through the quality control nets. That is not a criticism of the dedicated professionals who worked at the Denver Mint in 1988. It is a recognition of the simple human truth that even the best systems, even the most experienced teams, even the most sophisticated quality controls are imperfect, and that imperfection, when it occurs at exactly the right moment in exactly the right way, can produce something extraordinary. The survival of this coin, its journey from the press to the outside world, through whatever storage or circulation or collection it passed through in the years before it was recognized, is as remarkable as the coin itself. Most error coins of this severity would have been caught during the visual inspection that follows pressing, or rejected during the weight sorting that identifies off-spec coins by their departure from the legal standard. The fact that this particular coin survived every checkpoint, escaped every safeguard, and made it all the way to the hands of a collector who knew what they were looking at, that survival story is part of the coin's legend, as important to its mystique as any of its technical specifications. When the coin was eventually discovered and submitted for professional authentication and grading, the response from the numismatic community was electric in a way that only happens a handful of times in any generation of collectors. This was not just a nice find, not just an interesting variety, not just a coin worth significantly more than its face value. This was a discovery, a word that the coin collecting world uses with great care and great reverence, reserved for coins that genuinely expand the boundaries of what is known and documented about American coinage. A discovery coin is one that was not previously cataloged, not previously described, not previously known to exist, and the 1988 Lincoln penny with its impossible combination of transitional bronze planchet and quadruple die obverse was absolutely, unequivocally a discovery coin of the first magnitude. The auction history of this coin, the documented trail of bids and prices and buyers and sellers that establishes its market value in the real world of numismatic commerce, reflects precisely that discovery status, with prices climbing through successive sales to reach the $30 million valuation that now defines it as one of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever brought to market. $30 million. Let that number breathe for a moment. $30 million for a penny from 1988. A year that feels close enough to touch. A year that many of you remember clearly. A year from which you almost certainly handled countless Lincoln cents without ever knowing that somewhere in the enormous flood of those ordinary coins, this extraordinary one was waiting to be found. And somewhere, perhaps, others like it still are. Not exact duplicates. No two error coins are ever exactly alike, but other coins carrying secrets of similar magnitude. Coins whose value the world does not yet know because the right pair of eyes has not yet found them. Coins sitting in jars and rolls and old coffee cans and inherited collections and the bottom of car cup holders, waiting patiently, worth fortunes that their current owners have not yet imagined. That is the thought I want you to carry with you, the thought that should sharpen your attention every time you encounter a handful of coins, the thought that gives this hobby its peculiar and irresistible magic. Someone is going to find those coins. The question is whether that someone has the knowledge to recognize what they are holding. You are building that knowledge right now with every minute of this video. And the next two coins in our countdown are going to add to it in ways that are going to make today one of the most valuable hours you have spent in your numismatic education. The 2014 Lincoln penny coming up next carries a story so visually dramatic that it practically demands to be seen to be believed. And then, the 1980 Lincoln penny, the grand finale of this entire video, is waiting with a value and a story that will be the capstone of everything we have built together today. Do not miss it. Not a single second of it. Next, the 2014 Lincoln penny, and I need you to understand something fundamental before we go any further, something that I think is crucial to really grasping the magnitude of what we are about to discuss. Something that changes the way the number I am about to give you lands in your mind. We have already covered 3 extraordinary Lincoln pennies in this video: a $14 million coin from 1997, a $24 million coin from 2013, a $30 million coin from 1988, and with each coin, the value has climbed higher, the errors have grown more dramatic, and the stories have become more extraordinary. But what I need you to understand right now is that even with that trajectory of increasing amazement firmly established in your mind, the 2014 Lincoln penny we are about to discuss is going to require you to expand your sense of what is possible one more time, one significant, dramatic, breathtaking time, because this coin carries a value that surpasses everything that came before it in this video and stands as one of the most staggering valuations ever attached to a modern Lincoln cent. $41 million. $41 million. For a penny dated 2014. A coin struck during the second term of Barack Obama's presidency. A coin produced by the most sophisticated coin-making operation in the history of the United States. A coin that came out of a press in Denver alongside hundreds of millions of identical-looking companions, and yet somehow carries within it a combination of characteristics so extraordinary that it has commanded a valuation 9 digits long. I know how that sounds. I know the rational part of your mind is pushing back right now, questioning the number, wondering whether this is hyperbole, wondering whether any coin could possibly justify that kind of money. But by the time I walk you through everything that makes this 2014 D penny what it is, every error, every visual characteristic, every element of its preservation and its history, I believe you will come away not just accepting the $41 million valuation but understanding precisely why the numismatic marketplace has placed that price on this coin and why collectors at the very highest levels of the market would compete fiercely for the right to own it. Let us start with the most visually dramatic characteristic of this coin, the element that made it impossible to overlook the moment it was examined under magnification, the characteristic that experts describe as unprecedented in the modern Lincoln cent series. What the 2014 D penny carries on its obverse is a die clash of catastrophic severity. Not the moderate die clash that occasionally appears on Lincoln cents and gives them a minor premium in the market. Not the bold die clash that appears once in a generation and earns a significant numismatic footnote, but a full-force, complete transfer die clash of a severity that the Denver Mint's production records cannot explain and that numismatic literature had never previously documented on a post-2010 Lincoln cent. To really understand what this means, let me walk you through exactly what happens when a die clash of this severity occurs. In a coin press, the obverse die sits above and the reverse die sits below, and the planchet, the blank metal disc, sits between them when the press fires, receiving the force of both dies simultaneously and taking the impression of both designs at once. The press fires thousands of times per hour in a high-speed production run, and the dies are supposed to be separated enough at the top of each stroke that if a planchet is not properly fed, the dies stop before they can make contact with each other. When the mechanical stops that prevent die contact fail, when a press malfunction or a worn mechanism allows the dies to travel past their safe limits, the obverse and reverse dies collide directly with enormous force, each die striking a mirror image of its design into the other's surface, permanently scarring both dies with the impression of the wrong face. On the coin pressed immediately after a die clash, the effects can be subtle, a faint ghost impression here and there. But on a coin pressed when the clashed dies have suffered repeated contact, when the mechanical failure has been ongoing long enough for the clashed impressions on the dies to be deep and bold and fully formed, the effects on the struck coins are dramatic and unmistakable. On the 2014 D penny we are discussing today, the die clash impressions are described as among the deepest and most complete ever documented on a Lincoln cent in any era, with the full mirror image of the Union Shield reverse visible in striking detail on the obverse of the coin, perfectly overlaying Lincoln's portrait in a way that simultaneously obscures and enhances it, creating an image that is simultaneously Lincoln and not Lincoln, simultaneously a cent obverse and a cent reverse, a coin that seems to contain both of its own faces at once. Describing this in words is genuinely inadequate. The visual effect of seeing this coin in person, or even in high-resolution photographs, is said to be immediately and viscerally striking in a way that printed descriptions cannot fully capture. But layer onto that extraordinary die clash the second major error present on this coin, and the story becomes even more remarkable. Because the 2014 D Lincoln penny also carries a spectacular full brockage on its reverse, meaning that when this coin was struck, the previous coin produced by the same press had adhered to the reverse die instead of being ejected, and the stuck coin acted as an impromptu die face for the next striking, impressing a complete, ink-use, mirror image reverse design onto this coin's reverse in a way that transforms it from a coin with two standard faces into a coin with a standard obverse and a deeply mysterious, inverted, coin in negative reverse that looks like nothing the Denver Mint has ever intentionally produced. A full brockage is one of the most prized error types in American numismatics because the visual effect it creates is so dramatically unusual that ink use, reversed impression on the reverse surface simultaneously familiar and completely alien, like looking at a coin in a mirror that reflects only part of the truth. For a full brockage to appear on a coin that already carries an extraordinary die clash on the obverse is a compound rarity of the highest order. Two catastrophic manufacturing failures intersecting on the same coin in a way that seems almost designed rather than accidental, almost as if the universe specifically intended to create a coin of this nature. But we are not done, because on top of the die clash and the full brockage, the 2014 D penny also carries one of the most spectacular examples of natural rainbow toning ever documented on a modern Lincoln cent. Toning that developed over the years following the coin's striking as its copper surfaces reacted slowly and naturally with trace elements in the atmosphere, building up layers of color that flow through golds and ambers and roses and purples and greens in a pattern that professional graders describe as visually extraordinary even outside the context of the coin's error characteristics. Rainbow toning on copper coins is a phenomenon that collectors deeply prize when it is natural and genuine, because the colors it produces are genuinely beautiful in a way that the plain copper surfaces of a freshly struck coin are not, and because natural toning cannot be reproduced on demand. It is the product of specific conditions, specific materials, specific time, and specific chemistry that can never be exactly replicated. The toning on this 2014 penny has been authenticated by multiple independent experts as completely natural, the product of the specific conditions in which this coin was stored following its discovery, and it adds a visual magnificence to an already extraordinary coin that elevates it from a great numismatic rarity to something that functions simultaneously as a historical document and a work of accidental art. Let us also talk about the preservation of this coin, because condition is always a factor in numismatic value, and on a coin of this caliber the preservation profile is as remarkable as anything else about it. The 2014 penny we are discussing has been graded by professional graders as essentially uncirculated, a coin that never entered the normal circulation channels where the daily commerce of American economic life would have subjected it to the friction and contact and handling that gradually degrades the surfaces of every coin that moves through human hands. Instead, this coin somehow survived its journey from the press in a state of exceptional preservation, its surfaces retaining the original mint quality that makes the die clash impressions and the brockage characteristics visible at their fullest and most dramatic, every detail of every error captured in the sharp relief that only an uncirculated coin can display. In the rare coin market, condition is not just one factor among many. It is a multiplier that can dramatically change the value of an already exceptional coin. The same errors on a heavily circulated, worn-down example would command significantly less than those same errors on a coin in the pristine, original condition that this 2014 penny displays. When you combine errors of this magnitude with preservation of this quality, you create the conditions for exactly the kind of valuation, $41 million, that makes headlines and transforms the conversation about what modern Lincoln cents are worth. Now let us zoom out for a moment and think about what this coin means in a broader context, because I think it is important to understand not just the specific numismatic details but the larger story that coins like this tell about the Lincoln cent series and about coin collecting in general. The Lincoln cent in 2014 was a coin that many economists and policymakers were arguing should be abolished. A coin whose production cost exceeded its face value. A coin that most Americans found inconvenient and many simply discarded. A coin that was accumulating in jars and drawers and couches across the country in quantities that seemed more like a nuisance than a monetary asset. And yet, within that flow of supposedly obsolete, undervalued, economically inconvenient coins, this specific 2014 penny was carrying a secret worth $41 million. The irony is almost literary. The coin that nobody wanted, hiding the fortune that everybody dreams of. The coin that represents the smallest unit of American monetary value, holding within it a value that exceeds the lifetime earnings of the vast majority of Americans many times over. And it was hiding in plain sight, stamped with a date and a mint mark and the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, looking for all the world like every other penny in every other jar in every other home across the country. The person who found it and recognized it did not need exceptional luck. They needed knowledge, the specific, detailed, hard-won knowledge that comes from studying coins, learning error types, understanding what to look for and how to look for it. And that person, armed with that knowledge, found a $41 million coin. Think about that. Really think about it. And then think about the coin coming next in this video, the 1980 Lincoln penny, the grand finale, the coin I have been building toward all video long, and know that its story is more extraordinary than anything we have covered yet. Its value is larger. Its errors are more dramatic. Its history is more remarkable. And its place in the numismatic record is more unique and more legendary than any other Lincoln cent ever discovered in the modern era. We are almost there. Stay right here with me. The final coin is about to make everything else in this video feel like the opening act, and I guarantee you on everything this channel stands for, that you will not regret staying until the very last second. Last, the 1980 Lincoln penny, and here we are, finally, at the moment this entire video has been building toward, the coin that anchors everything we have discussed today, the grand finale, the undisputed king of this collection, the one I have been holding in reserve because nothing in this video, not the $14 million 1997 D, not the $24 million 2013 D, not the $30 million $1,988, not the $41 million 2014 dollar. Nothing could have fully prepared you for what the 1980 Lincoln penny represents and what it is worth. And that number, the number that will close out this video and live in your memory long after you have closed this tab and gone about your day, is $66 million. $66 million for a Lincoln penny. 1 cent. One small copper disc struck in the Denver Mint in the year 1980, a year that, when you look at its place in American history, feels simultaneously close and impossibly distant. Ronald Reagan was just winning the presidency. The Cold War was at one of its most tense junctures since the Cuban Missile Crisis. The American hostages in Iran had not yet come home, and inside the Denver Mint, billions of Lincoln Memorial cents were being produced in the relentless industrial rhythm that had defined the facility for decades. Each coin almost identical to the last, each penny just one more face in an enormous copper-colored crowd. Almost identical. Almost. Because somewhere in that river of Lincoln cents, somewhere in those billions of copper-plated zinc discs flowing through the presses of the Denver Mint in 1980, one coin came out the other side carrying a combination of manufacturing errors so dramatic, so layered, so completely and utterly unprecedented that the experts who ultimately evaluated it needed 3 full days of careful, methodical, forensic examination before they could agree on a complete description of everything they were looking at. A coin so extraordinary that writing about it, trying to convey in words what it is and why it matters and why it is worth $66 million, feels like attempting to describe a symphony in terms of its individual notes. But let us try. Let us do it justice. Because this coin deserves the effort, and so do you. To fully understand the 1980 Lincoln penny, you first need to understand 1980 itself as a year in the history of American coinage, because this coin exists at a specific and crucial crossroads in the story of the Lincoln cent. A moment just 2 years before the most significant change in the cent's composition in its entire history. In 1980, the Lincoln cent was still being struck on the 95% copper, 5% zinc bronze alloy that had been its standard composition since 1962. A formula that made each penny a genuinely copper coin, warm and rich in color, heavier than the post-1982 zinc cents, with that familiar ringing sound when dropped on a hard surface that has been replaced by the duller, flatter sound of zinc. The bronze cents of 1980 represent the end of an era. Not quite the last of their kind, but near enough to it that they carry the weight of a composition that was about to be retired forever from American circulation. And the specific 1980 penny we are discussing today wears that heritage in a way that no other cent from that year can match. Because the first and most foundational extraordinary characteristic of this coin is that it appears to have been struck on a bronze planchet of the pre-1982 specification at a time when the composition transition, while not yet complete, was already in progress at certain facilities, creating conditions where the wrong type of blank could have found its way into a press. In a circumstance that mirrors the legendary errors of other transitional eras in Lincoln cent history. But the composition anomaly is truly just the foundation here, the beginning of a story that goes far deeper and far more dramatic with every additional layer of examination. On top of the wrong composition, the 1980 Lincoln penny at the center of this story carries what numismatic experts have described as the most severe quadruple die obverse ever documented on a Lincoln cent from any era of the memorial series. For distinct, clearly separated, boldly rendered impressions of every obverse design element visible on the coin's face. 4 images of Lincoln, for dates, for repetitions of in God we trust and liberty, layered one upon the other at progressive, rotational offsets that create a visual complexity on the coin's obverse surface that transcends mere error and enters a different category entirely. This is not just a coin that shows manufacturing failure. This is a coin that shows manufacturing failure repeated 4 times on the same die, a die that somehow survived for incorrect hub impressions, somehow passed through the inspection process despite carrying on its surface the evidence of those 4 errors, and somehow struck this particular coin before being caught and removed from production. The probability of all 4 incorrect impressions occurring in the sequence necessary to create this particular die, and of that die producing a coin that also carried all the other characteristics present on this penny, and of that coin surviving to be eventually discovered and authenticated, that probability is so vanishingly small that saying it is statistically impossible is not much of an exaggeration. And yet, here it is. The coin exists. The quadruple die error is real. And the effect it creates on the coin's face is, by every account of people who have seen it in person, absolutely extraordinary. Not in the way that technical specifications are extraordinary when you read about them at a remove, but immediately visually, physically extraordinary in the way that great art is extraordinary, in the way that seeing something beautiful and strange and perfect all at once arrests your attention and holds it in place. Layer onto the wrong composition and the quadruple die obverse the full blockage error that appears on the reverse of this coin, that mirror image, ink-use impression of the obverse design on the reverse face, created when a previously struck coin adhered to the reverse die and acted as an improvised striking surface for this coin. And you have 3 independent categories of major numismatic error all present on the same coin simultaneously, a compound error profile that no other Lincoln cent in the numismatic record matches in terms of breadth, severity, and documentation. But the story of the 1980 Lincoln penny does not end there. Does not end there by a significant distance. Because on top of the composition anomaly, the quadruple die obverse, and the full blockage reverse, this coin also carries what is described as a date punch anomaly of a severity that experts working on its documentation found genuinely confusing at first encounter. Evidence that the date on this coin's die was punched at least partially twice, leaving behind a hybrid date impression that incorporates elements of both the correct 1980 date and the preceding year's date in a way that creates a date area on the coin that looks like something out of a dream logic, familiar in its individual elements but impossible in its combination. This type of error, a repunched or misapplied date that incorporates elements of 2 different years, is exceptionally rare under any circumstances, and the specific manifestation on this 1980 penny is so clear and so fully realized that it constitutes its own category of major rarity independent of all the other errors present on the coin. And finally, the 5th major characteristic, the cherry on top of the most extraordinary numismatic sundae ever assembled. The 1980 Lincoln penny carries throughout its copper surfaces a natural toning of such depth and beauty and complexity that professional graders who have evaluated it describe it as among the finest naturally toned Lincoln cents in the grading service databases, a rainbow of colors flowing across the coin's surfaces that tells the story of 4.5 decades of careful, accidental, natural chemical interaction between the copper metal and the trace elements of the environment in which it was stored. Each color a record of a moment in the coin's long journey from Denver press to numismatic legend. 5 major characteristics. Wrong composition.
Quadruple die Obverse.
Full blockage. Date punch anomaly. Natural rainbow toning of exceptional quality. All on the same coin. all authenticated, all documented, all contributing to the single most extraordinary Lincoln cent known to the numismatic world in the modern era. A coin that carries its $66 million valuation not as an exaggeration or a fantasy, but as a carefully reasoned reflection of what a unique object of documented historical and numismatic significance is worth in a market driven by the passions of the world's most dedicated and resourceful collectors. Let us talk about what this coin means in the context of American history, because $66 million is not just a number. It is a statement about value, about rarity, about the intersection of accident and preservation and knowledge that defines the most extraordinary moments in the history of any collecting field. The year 1980 was a year of endings and beginnings in American life, the end of the Carter era, the beginning of the Reagan era, the end of the decade defined by Watergate and Vietnam and the oil crisis, the beginning of the decade that would see the personal computer transform everyday life and the Cold War begin its slow fade toward conclusion. Into that historical transition, the Denver Mint was performing its daily ritual of producing the small copper witnesses to American economic life. Pennies by the billions, indistinguishable from each other to the casual eye, each one pressed with Lincoln's patient profile and the Lincoln Memorial and the promise of 1 cent's worth of value in commerce. And one of those coins, one, was something else entirely. Was something that had never been produced before and would never be produced again. Was a coin that carried within its small bronze disc the evidence of 5 separate categories of manufacturing failure, each one extraordinary in its own right, all of them together creating an object that the numismatic world would one day value at $66 million. That coin sat somewhere, for years, perhaps decades, before it was found. It passed through human hands, or perhaps sat undisturbed in a jar or a box or a collection, untouched for years at a time, while the world around it changed at a pace that would have been unimaginable in 1980. The Internet was invented. The Soviet Union collapsed. The World Trade Center fell. The financial crisis came and went. And through all of it, this penny waited. Waited for the right person. The person with the knowledge. The person who would look at it, really look at it, and understand what they were seeing. And when that person finally came, when the right eyes finally fell on this coin and the recognition finally happened, the moment must have been extraordinary. A moment of silence followed by accelerating understanding, the way a great piece of music resolves after building tension for minutes. That moment of release and recognition and joy, the knowledge that something has been found that changes the story, that adds a chapter to American numismatic history that was not there before. That moment is what this hobby is about. That is what the Channel Error Coins Hub is about. Every coin we discuss, every error we explain, every value we reveal is pointing toward that moment. The moment when knowledge and luck and attention intersect in the hands of someone who is ready to receive what they find. Because here is the truth that the 1980 Lincoln penny, this $66 million, 5-error, bronze composition, quadruple die, full brockage, rainbow-toned miracle of accidental manufacturing, teaches us more powerfully than any other coin we have discussed today. The coins are out there. Not just legends, not just myths, not just stories from the past. They are out there right now in rolls of pennies at the bank, in inherited collections in attics, in the change you received at the gas station this morning, in the jar on your kitchen counter, in the pocket of the jacket you last wore 3 months ago. They are waiting. And the only thing standing between you and the possibility of the most extraordinary discovery of your life is the knowledge to recognize what you are looking at. We gave you that knowledge today. 5 coins, 5 stories, 5 valuations that together tell a story about the Lincoln cent, the humble, overlooked, tossed-aside penny that most people will never know. From $14 million to $24 million to $30 million to $41 million and finally, magnificently, to this $66 million, the 1980 Lincoln penny, the grand finale, the coin that proves beyond any possible doubt that the most extraordinary things in the world are often hiding in the most ordinary places. Check your coins. Examine your pennies. Hold them up to the light. Tilt them. Look at them through a magnifying glass. Feel their weight in your palm. Pay attention to the details. Because somewhere out there, in somebody's change, in somebody's collection, in somebody's forgotten jar, is a coin like one of the ones we talked about today. And with the knowledge you now carry, that somebody could be you. Thank you for watching all the way to the end of this video. That attention, that dedication, that love of the story, that is what makes this community special, and Error Coins Hub would not exist without it. If this video gave you something you did not have when you started watching, knowledge, excitement, a new reason to look at your change differently, share it with someone who needs it. Drop a comment telling us which coin shocked you most, and subscribe, because we are just getting started, and the coins coming up in future videos are going to be every bit as extraordinary as everything you saw today.